Welcome to Money Conversations with KJ. KJ is a lifelong entrepreneur who's made a lot of money, lost a lot of money, and found his way back again. If you're looking for a sterile how-to, you're in the wrong place. KJ and his guests will walk you through real-life situations told by the people who live them, and they are as messy as they are inspiring. Each episode will offer lessons learned, advice on how to replicate successes and avoid pitfalls, and a new perspective to power your financial literacy. Far from a one-size-fits-all, this podcast can help you build a roadmap to your personal promised land. Milk and honey for some, whiskey and steak for others, and remind you that you're not alone on this journey.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to the show. I'm super excited today to have my guest on. My guest and I met online, actually, because we're kind of in similar spaces. My guest today is it Nike or
Nike
Anani, right? And so I'm going to let Nike explain to you where she's from and what she actually does. And then we're going to get into see your backstory and how all this came about. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Kevin. I'm really, really chuffed to be here today. I am a family business owner, a second generation family business owner, as well as a succession specialist. So I work with families that are seeking to move their businesses beyond the current generation. And I help them bridge the gap between the now gen and the next gen. And what's my story? Really, where do we begin?
Well, let me ask you a question. So what's really interesting that I think is there's a phrase out there, maybe you heard it or not, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, right? Mm-hmm. So when you're speaking to the people, your target audience out there, again, I'm an entrepreneur because my whole family's been an entrepreneur for generations, right? It's so I think we just learn these things from such a young age, right? That as then we become young adults and whatnot, and you're like, hey, I want to go be my own boss, right? I don't want to trade time for money for somebody else. I want to do my own thing. And so you're helping people with that because it can't definitely be difficult road if you don't have some guidance, would you say? Is that what you're finding out there?
For sure. I will echo what you said. You know, a lot of skills we learn in life are either taught or caught. And a lot of entrepreneurs, you find that in their families, they've had a legacy and a history of entrepreneurship like yours, right? But it does take intentionality, it takes planning, it takes a different type of skill to be able to move your business, the same business, for instance, a real estate development company, so that it's a third, fourth generation business. So that's what I help families do. And it doesn't necessarily mean that your children would be the presidents of these businesses. It just means that they have the skills to be owners and to strategically lead and direct it so that it can be future focused.
I think that's great because I'm trying to think of somebody, I'll just say if someone's out there, you know, that 15, 16, 17-year-old range, and they're thinking like, yeah, okay, I'm going to go to school and learn, you know, a certain set of skills or whatever, but knowing already at that age, and I know they do because my daughter does, hey, I want to own a business, and they don't know what it is yet. They just like, hey, I'm going to own a business, right? That's already a decision made. But where do you go? I mean, you can get a degree in entrepreneurship, but to have someone like yourself come along and help people guide and navigate themselves through the beginning, middle of their journeys, I think is invaluable. Anything we could do, and for me, learning is collapsing time. We can all learn these things on our own, but it would just take too long. And, you know, why do that, right? Why not invest in yourself? And there's so many programs available today to help us in every possible field you want to think about. And all that does is collapse time. So let's talk about your journeys, right? So was is that where you came from? Like your family's entrepreneurs?
For sure. So my father was the first generation. He started off our first business as a family the year I was born. So I'm similar to you. I kind of caught this bug, this entrepreneurship bug. It was just always in the background. And so after university, I worked in corporate for a few years because I was in London at this point. The family business is in Nigeria. I grew up in Nigeria, I should have said. I'm all the way in Africa right now.
Okay.
And so after my brief career in accountancy, I came back to Nigeria and started working with my father. And by this point, the family business had evolved from just a medical supplies company to a construction business, a real estate development company, and an engineering company. So it was quite a complex structure, as well as my father had started diversifying and investing in a lot of sectors as well. So yeah, I really just fell into it. It wasn't a planned kind of career aspiration of mine to come and work in the family business. I just came home. I came visiting for 3 months. That was my plan. And I just decided not to leave because I really enjoyed my experience working with my father informally. It's very soon after it was formalized, and I started working as a director in the family business and oversaw the HR, finance, and admin units, as well as set up an investment management structure to manage all Dad's investments that he'd been doing in a very informal way. So that was really much my first-hand experience of it, and I just absolutely fell in love with family business. I just loved the opportunity to work with my loved ones, to know that the work that I was doing was so meaningful and helping in building financial security for my loved ones, and also empowering communities. There's a lot of work that small businesses, local businesses, family businesses do in, ensuring that the whole ecosystem thrives. And it really resonated with me. And I started to imagine, okay, it would be so amazing if this business doesn't even stop at my generation, if my kids or their kids could continue to have this business, and we could all cite back to the origin story. Remember great grandfather, and he started this off because of ABC. And that was just how I became obsessed, and then started working.
That's awesome. This is a beautiful story. It's a beautiful story, and it makes me think. So obviously your dad's been in business for a while. You went out into the corporate world. I mean, went to school, learned some skill sets, accounting and whatnot. Came home to visit. But I look at it like, well, you came home, your dad knows you went to school and got proficient in your area. And at that time, whether it was right at that time or before, where he's like, man, Nikki would be a great asset to the company right now. We really need somebody like her. And listen, typically you can definitely trust family, right? I'm not saying you can always trust family, but typically you could be able to, right? And then you came in and brought so much value to the company at that given time. And in the fact that you talk to people that are doing the same thing, there's so many business in America, there's 30 million businesses in this country, right? I mean, that's a lot, and most of them are family owned businesses, right? Mm-hmm. They're not all giant corporations. So I think the lesson here is, listen, if it's probably you could throw a stone and hit somebody that has a family business, right, of some sorts. Now, whether you're going to go work with your family or not, that's up to you. Sometimes that doesn't always work, right? Just because difference of the minds kind of thing. But in your case, it worked out really well for you. I'm just trying to get the lesson here for people out there listening. Go in, because when your dad started that business and you came along and gave it value, people are going to come along, right? This is 2021, and the skill set that you can bring that maybe wasn't needed or available at the beginning stages of your dad's business or out there, right? Your family's business. You're like, hey, I've learned XYZ. I can help us go to the next level kind of thing. I can help us streamline. Let me plug me in and use my abilities that I've learned. But what have you found when that being said, because I know a lot of family businesses, it can be a tough dynamic. Personalities can conflict. Like, I was here first, or I'm smarter, or I put more money in, or I put more time in, right? I deserve XYZ. How do people solve those kinds of problems?
Mm-hmm. And there's other problems as well. The founders doesn't want to let go.
Yeah.
The rising gen finds it difficult to grab on and make a stamp. There's all manners of, challenges, and all these challenges typically arise because, in a family business is weird because you have a confluence of both family and business, and family and business are very different. Families, we expect unconditional love in a family unit. It's a nurturing unit. It's a unit where we expect to treat all the kids equally, right? And we want psychological safety. We want stability. In a business, it's a lot more cutthroat. It's quite harsh, but it's more performance oriented. We are seeking to make a profit. We evaluate employees based on their productivity, their performance. We want to see that this business grows in profitability. So equal treatment, it doesn't work in a business. So when you now have this weird situation where family comes into the business, is it the case that every child of the founder automatically has a job, or is there a standard? Is it the case that every family member automatically rises to the top in spite of the non-family members that have been there and might actually deserve it? They're more competent and they have the right skills to do so. So these are the types of issues that family businesses have to contend with that non-family businesses don't have to. But essentially, to kind of wade through a lot of these issues is firstly gaining clarity of, like I said, the distinction between family and business, and having clarity of purpose. For some families, the purpose of the business is to serve the family. Those are family first businesses. Whereas for others, the purpose of the business is primarily a business venture, which are business first. And so when you have clarity of your purpose, then it's easier then to have boundaries to enforce and see that we achieve our goals as a family.
I think I'm going to use just my family as an example because it's what I know, right? And I know that my grandfather started the business, and I live in Las Vegas. And my grandfather came here in 1942, which was almost a ghost town. It was like maybe 50,000 people here. Started sand and gravel business, whatnot. My grandfather had 7 kids, 4 boys, 3 girls. And it was back then, generationally, it was already assumed, hey, dad started a business, we're working for dad. It wasn't like, hey, do you want to come work in the family business? It was just, no, you are working in the family business, right? In today's world, I don't think that's the case. In today's world, you're going to be, hey, would you like to be in the family business, right? And I think to avoid any kind of pitfalls, animosity, things going sideways, right? And I recommend this with money also, is like being as transparent and as honest as you can right up front. And if you own a business and you have a business plan, right, and sharing the business plan, because we can't read each other's minds, right? And who's ever at the head of the table here, so to speak, like, hey, this is the vision, this is the plan. And every time a new family member may come into the business, you have to share the complete plan. I think that's the disconnect. I think the disconnect is like the person at the head. If someone new comes in, like when you came into your dad's business, did he lay out everything that he's doing and his what he's done in the past, what he's doing currently, and his future vision? Did he lay it all out for you that then you could best assess in your perspective and the professionalism that you bring to the table to best give him the most value possible? Did he do that with you guys?
To the best of his ability with the information that was available, right? He was quite open. And to be fair to him, a lot of things were not necessarily clear to him, the future, like who he would want to, succeed in the business. Strategically, are we going to sell the business? Would it be non-family staff taking over? Or would it be one of us kids, But to the best of, we were very open as a family in discussing our roles and the future of the business. And I think what you were touching on is so apt in that there's been this generational shift. In the past, it was just assumed, Junior, you're coming into the business, right?
Right.
But now in our 21st century world, more next gens are outside of the business than in. And this creates a lot of angst with the older folks who are like, so what's going on? I need to retire. Who's going to take over? What's going on? But I always say that, in fact, what is key to seeing that family businesses thrive as they move from generation to generation is that they move from being conscious operators to being conscious owners. So being an operator, you're focused on just running that machine, and you're the one needed. Without you turning that key and manning that machine, the machine won't work. We
Right.
need you. But being an owner, you're able to deploy resources to be able to guide others or guide people and machines to keep the whole wheels running. And when we're moving from Gen 1 to Gen 2 or Gen 2 to Gen 3, if you think about it, the family's growing a lot faster typically than the business. So we need more resources to keep up, to sustain the family's standard of living. And so you typically see that families start investing in different sectors or starting new businesses or moving into new geographic locations, getting into joint ventures. So the family moves from being a family business to being a family enterprise.
Right.
And to maintain and run a family enterprise, you have to move from being an operator to being an owner, because you've got more complexity to handle. You can't just stay deep in the detail. You have to levitate and be able to see the macro and guide strategic directions on, for instance, culture or key people issues, investments, and strategy, right? So I often appeal to founders and older folk. It's not the end of the world if your kids are not interested in working in the factory, or, they can add tremendous value from a strategic standpoint.
I think, as you explain that, you're talking to me, I'm taking it. This is a family business that intentional growth. You want to get to a fairly high place. And, businesses usually start out one person, two, and then you're growing it and your family comes in, and we want to utilize your best skill set. And now the company's diversifying while they grow. So we need all these other skill sets. And so usually there's a limited number of people, family members that's going to come in of a company that'll ultimately be, 50, 100 or more employees. Obviously you got to hire outsiders and bring in the right value. Right. And I can totally see that where the family that's coming in, you've brought in, if they can see, well, grandpa, let's just say, grandpa, when I got here, you were doing $200,000 a year. And with my help, we're doing $750,000 a year. And projections are, you want to hit 2 million a year. And you're automatically going to be thinking, well, I'm getting a big raise. I'm family. I'm here with the growth. I'm going to make more money. And that's not always the case, right? I think people need to be patient with whatever the said salary is going to be to you, and understanding that if your intentions are growing a business 2x, 3x, 10x, that you have to reinvest into your business. So those monies aren't just being made to disperse and makes everybody's lifestyle raise 10x. That's not how it works. But I think a lot of people believe, hey, I've got my blood, sweat, and tears here. I need to make more money. So I like talking about money, because in your scenario that you explain, I would tend to believe through most of my conversations that people don't like talking about the money, right?
No, they don't.
And you, like yourself personally, you came in and you're an educated person that should make $X a year, regardless who's employing you, because that's your skill set. And so when you got to the family business, you're like, well, typically a person of education and where I'm at, my third, fifth year out or whatever, I should be making $X. And the company's like, well, we can't afford $X right now. Right. You've got to make this money. And you're like, you could be patient and say, all right, listen, I'm worth 100 a year, but I'll take the pay cut at 70 a year, understanding I'm going to get us to 3 levels up, and I need you to get me up when we get there. But I think it's the original patriarch of the family who makes those final decisions. I think this is where a disconnect happens, right? 100%. Everybody wants to go out. We got to make a living. You want to make a business happy. At the end of the day, when you get home from work, it's like, I want money for me, my personal family, my lifestyle, my future, right?
Indeed.
I'm not here just to build this for every family. I'm here for me too. And I think the disconnect is there. So let's start. I'd like to go back with you. And when you were younger, at what age do you remember the family sitting down, or your mom and dad sitting down and talking to you about, before you went to school, about money? Did they sit you down and give you a solid talk about money? about, hey, if you're going to go to this career makes, the ceiling, because every career usually has a ceiling of what you can make. The only career that doesn't have a ceiling is an entrepreneur. We can make as much as hard as we want to work.
That's a very good question, because I don't actually recall ever having a conversation about money
With
my
mom and dad.
parents.
Yeah.
No, I remember being given an allowance. And I remember the conversation about an allowance, particularly when I was moving to university, because my parents essentially, I remember the conversation about money was in my teens. I wanted to work because all my friends were working. And to be perfectly honest with you, I also wanted to get a part-time job in the shopping center because I went to an all-girls school. And I didn't have a boyfriend. So I thought if I got a job as a retail clerk, I would have exposure to potentially guys, as you do when you're 15, 16. And
Right.
I remember it created, my parents and I fought because my parents said, no way, why do you have to work? Why should you work? This will be a distraction to your education. You need to focus on your education. And I remember saying to them, well, the purpose of the education is to also be knowledgeable and worldly. And actually, I think there's skills that I'll pick up if I do work. And then the next time we spoke about money was when I was going off to university. And again, that same conversation, we don't want you to work because we want you to focus and get really good grades. Very typical upper class Nigerian mentality. And then the conversation was, okay, well, how much do you need to get by? How much would be a good allowance to keep you and maintain your standard of living? And they just gave me a number. In terms of career guidance and counseling, there was none of that. It was just very much, I think there was an expectation growing up that there were only like kind of 5 careers one could choose as a Nigerian.
Right.
Medicine, law, engineering, accounting. I can't remember the 5th one. It was just implied. I don't think my
Right.
parents ever said it to me, but it was just what we observed in our community. And
Right.
so all the conversations on, expected salary, career ladder, that was in school. We had a careers coach before we went to university to help us in choosing our subjects at university, to do all these kind of tests to know like which way you're inclined, what skills do you have, what options are there. But my parents didn't coach me in that way about money.
Okay. So, and again, this happens a lot, especially with, again, the upper middle class and parents able to do this for their kids because that's the mindset that the parents have, right? We, as parents, we want our kids to have more, right? We want our kids to live AKA better life, whatever that may mean. And so when they did that, I think, and I learned from raising 4 kids myself. And I remember my last one, we get to learn. I always say as a parent, even as a parent today, right? My oldest child is 37 years old, right? So she's not a child, right? She's an adult woman. But I say, hey, listen, I've never been the parent of a 37-year-old woman, right? Because parenting never ends, right? And so the last child, right, my youngest, which is 21, gets to all the benefits of the lessons that I've learned as a parent. And when she was in the shoes you just described, like, I want to go work, right? And typically at that age, 17, 18 years old, kids want to go work because they want their own money. They don't want to ask. Yep. A lot of them like, I don't want to ask you for any more money, mom and dad. And even if mom and dad's like, I'm going to give it to you, just what do you want, right? Kind of a thing. I found out later when I interviewed my daughter like 6 months ago, so this would be like 3 years later, she says, no, Dad, when I went to work, the skills that I learned had nothing to do with money. I learned how to be a team player at work, right? Mm-hmm. That's an invaluable lesson that you have to go do, I think, at that age. So it's not just about making money. So for parents out there thinking, no, school's the most important thing. Focus on school. Don't get a job. I'm going to give you the money. Your child is missing out on life lessons on how to be team players. So when you do go get that actual real job that you've studied for and spent money at school for, that you can be in an environment like, hey, I've been in an environment where I have to learn how to work with people. Right? Would you agree?
100. I think beyond the me trying to get out into the town and meet boys. I think it was also a cry for independence. Um, you know, growing up with a high performing entrepreneurial father that, was very successful, was very intimidating.
I get
And
that. Yeah.
mhm,
I think that for the listeners out there that are in the younger age demographic, let them, I think we all need to go out and do our own thing, and listen, you're going to have failures. And I believe failures are a good thing as long as we learn from them.
mhm,
You cannot fail and not take some sort of a lesson away from it, right? If you're going to fail, look back, what happened? Why did this not work? Why did I fail at XYZ, right? And don't beat yourself up about it, because I think the more we fail, the more we learn.
mhm,
And if you never fail, you're never learning, right? So let those 17, 18, 20-year-olds go out there, learn what life's about, but also at the same time, learn the value of making a dollar. If your dad gave you $500 a week, I don't know what he gave you, but let's just say he gave you $500 a week. Like,
mhm.
do you know what it takes to make $500 a week? Well, yeah, you got to trade time for it. And like, well, people are out there here in America, like, the battle here is like minimum wage should be $15 an hour. And like, I don't even know how anybody lives on $15 an hour, but let's just say that's what you're trading time for. But dad's giving me 500. Like, you just don't understand the true concept and the value of money. So I think working at the younger age to understand, man, I worked my tail off and my check's only this much money. Like, wow,
Mhm.
I got to make that stretch for another week. Right. So when we talk about money and parents don't talk to us about it, like, okay, you're going to make money. What's next? What are you going to do with this money? I sent you to school. I paid for school. Your career says you can make $X. What are your plans? What do you want to do with the money? Nobody has these conversations,
Mhm.
and you end up
And
figuring it
why?
out. You have to figure it out. And I'm finding through conversations, the average age of people looking back and figuring out, oh, okay, this is what I need to do, is right around 30, which means from 20 to
Yeah.
30, 10 years, that's a long period of time where you're trying to figure things out with money because no one sat you down when you're 15 to 18. And you could be so much further ahead in the game at 30 had you known a bunch of these other lessons, right? So if mom and dad didn't teach you, who taught you, or what did you do to learn about money and how to handle it? And how do you handle it today?
I mean, luckily, I studied economics at university, and then I went into accountancy, my beginning of my career. So my formal education actually taught me a lot about money management, and I had always, like I said, I was yearning for some level of independence, not necessarily financial independence, but I think just to know for myself that who I was outside of my parents. So um, I I would read up a lot on financial security, because I was always very concerned that if who's going to take over from this empire, and if we don't have what it takes as the next generation, if it all collapses, then we're literally like exposed. So I had this very strong drive for financial security. So I would read books, I would watch videos, I would, listen to podcasts. And so I started saving from right from when I started earning, and started investing as well. So it's very much self-driven learning, as opposed to someone sat me down. And aside from my education, studying economics and learning about accountancy, yeah.
So, which is awesome. So I always like to share with folks that, I've talked to just too many people in the ages between 45 and say like 60, and they're what I consider good, hardworking people who make a decent living, but yet have no money. And they don't have money because they never learned how to manage money. And they did it opposite of what you did. You were very proactive in learning, not just because it was your career, but outside of career for you personally, to do the right things with money, right? And again, the higher percentage of people don't. They just don't. I think I've heard terms, they tell me, well, I thought I would just figure it out. Well, no, let's not just figure it out. There's plenty of places out there we can learn from, right? And even just, again, like I teach the fundamentals. Because like, if you hear people in any given sport, basketball, football, tennis, whatever, you'll hear them say, listen, learn the fundamentals first, and then you can get proficient at this game. So learn the fundamentals in basketball, learn how to just the basic dribble. Let's just learn how to dribble. Don't worry about running down the court between your legs, stopping at a jump shot and making it. Like, no, that's too far advanced for you, right? Let's just start with the basics, the fundamentals of dribbling, right? The same with money. We need to start with the fundamentals of money. But when most people have never been taught the fundamentals of money, then they go out there and they earn money. All they do with the more they make, the higher their lifestyle goes. And then they wonder why at 50 years old, I don't have any money. Well, all you did your whole career was the more you made, the more you spent. You never learned that you must invest your money for the future. You have to. You have to learn how to make multiple streams of income. You must learn how to make money while you sleep, or you'll work till you die. That's Warren Buffett saying. You must learn how to make money while you sleep, which is investing, right? Your money's always working. So you learn that through your career. And I think you mentioned you have kids?
Yes, we've got two boys.
What are your plans? Again, because your mom and dad didn't talk to you about money specifically, they were so focused on you getting this education, and then that the education would take care of itself, right? Education would take care of you. But your mindset's different now, right? We're different generation.
Very much so.
You think differently. What do you think you're going to do with your kids?
I think I am going to get them exposed to the concept of saving and investing from, right about now, to be honest. Our oldest is 6. The oldest is 6. So when his teeth fell out, the tooth fairy gave him some money. We put the money away, and he loves games and PS5 and all sorts. So every day he grabs like my phone and then comes and is like, he wants to download a new game. And I'm like, how much is it? And how much do you have in your piggy bank? And how how many teeth would you need to fall out for you to be able to afford this?
Right.
And, so he started doing chores as well. So he started earning from that as well. So just gradually getting him to understand the value of money. I think with time as well, we'll get him to expose him to the importance of entrepreneurship, the importance of investing, and the importance of diversification. But obviously this is, it has to be age appropriate. And I think that's the challenge as a parent, is like, how do you know what is appropriate for any given child?
I can answer that somewhat based on conversations that I've had. And I want people out there to understand, when you have children from the ages of 4 on up, you're getting ready to talk to your kids about it, and he's 6, right? For the parents who don't talk about it, and the adults that I talk to, understand our children are watching us. They're going to do what you do. If you're a saver, your child most likely will be a saver. If you're a spender, your child will be a spender, because they're looking at us as parents, right? And the conversations aren't happening. They're just watching and learning, right? And kids absorb so much so fast. It's crazy how much they absorb, right? That's the people they become. That's the mindset that gets instilled in them at such a young age. So when you just told me that, like, no, I'm going to start now. My child is 6. I was like, that's awesome, because some parents out there are thinking it's too early. Well, why do they need to learn about money and saving and investing? No, let's wait till they're in college or something like that. By then, generally speaking, their mindsets are already been set. The way they're going to handle money is already it's in there, and it's hard to break bad habits, as we all know. So you're going to put your child so far ahead of the game. And then people wonder, why do some people have more money than other people? What happened? This is what happens, right? You're middle upper class. You're able to that you need to teach your children this. And then over time, we can see the benefits of teaching a young one these things, versus we can see also the non-benefits of parents who don't want to talk to their kids about money. And you're 30 years old and you look back thinking, whoa, everybody can play Monday morning quarterback, right? Like, oh man, if I'd have knew this at 15 or 18 or 20, man, I'd be so further ahead. And you could say that at 50. Hey, if I knew this when I was 30, I would blah, blah, and you can always play that game. But it's so vitally important. We have to teach our kids so much stuff growing up that money is really one of the things that I believe we must talk about with them. They understand, respect it, whatever it is you're going to do in life, because there's a lot of people out there who will take advantage and steal your money anyway. But getting them to understand the money, the value of making it, like you said, break it down. Hey, I gave my kid an iPad. This thing's $500. Well, if they knew what mom and dad had to do for $500, they would respect it more, right? They wouldn't throw tantrums and when they could get frustrated on it, that kind of thing. So, man, kudos to you. Talk to your kids now. Yeah, you'll see that. And again, and the thing with money is we could talk about it all day long. Nobody sees benefits of what we learn and do with money till later. There's never an instant gratification about it. You won't know that your child is the way they're going to handle money till they're 15, 18 years old. But you'll look back on, this is why. And then as they become older adults, mid-adults, mid-20s, they'll come back. And it seems to me, we thank our parents when we really become mature, which isn't until 25 or 30 anyway. Right. So interesting. Do you talk to because you work with the family business, do you talk now with your parents about money and ask them why they didn't talk to you about money?
No, we've never had that conversation about why we haven't spoken about money, but definitely we do talk about money. We talk about money in the context of financial planning in the family business, in the context of expected liquidity from investments and what to do with it, in the context of even planning like our wider purpose, mission, vision, values. What do we want to build in terms of the family enterprise? What kind of an entity what we're trying to pass on to the next generation? So we've had in my adulthood conversations about money, but very much from the family business lens, right? Yeah, as opposed to from a functional growing up kind of an everyday conversation. Yeah. Money
I
is
would
still
be
taboo,
curious to
unfortunately.
know if you went to mom and dad, you're a grown woman with your own family now, and say, Mom, I did a podcast with a guy who completely agrees, like, I'm going to do it with my child, start talking about money and the value of money and investing and saving and all these things. I'm curious why you didn't have that conversation with me, because the answers are all across the board that I'm finding. Because I asked my mother, you know what she told me? She goes, I didn't know anything about money. So that's why my term, parents can't teach what parents don't know. Like they didn't know what to teach you or the timing of it. And then that's why money and sex, the two things that we should be talking to our kids about that most parents don't actually talk to their kids about. That'd be interesting. I mean, obviously it looks like you're doing fantastic. You're doing great things. The family business is, sounds like it's doing great. But anything when we do these types of podcasts that the listeners are out there and they're going to have aha moments, they're going to get their little golden nuggets, whether they're in the family business or they have kids and like, I hadn't thought about talking. My kid's 9 years old. I better hurry up. I better get in there and talk to little Johnny about money. You know what I mean? I hope that's what they're thinking and doing. Right. I think over time we can see a generational shift of how the younger generation handles money and talks about money. Let's talk about it. It's like, what are you doing? What can I learn from you? Right. Rather than not learning at all and then wondering why you don't have any.
Completely agree. And I think it's important because kids understanding the value of money really is, it helps to get rid of entitlement mindset. And that entitlement mindset is actually extremely destructive from a generational perspective in family businesses and wealth in general. So it's important to have these conversations about money, even if you don't, like you said, your mom actually came out and said, because I didn't know about money. I think that's why people don't talk about money, is because we're a bit afraid and to get vulnerable with one another. But the thing is, with your loved ones, you really want to see the best for them in their future. So, just getting a little bit uncomfortable and learning collectively as well. won't kill you. So really encourage you to have those conversations.
And like you said, it can, and I think that's why people don't talk about it. They get uncomfortable, right? Their intimidation, because I found that, look, you either have money or you don't have money. If you have money, you don't want to talk about money because you're thinking everybody wants to borrow some. And if you don't have money, you're embarrassed that you don't have money because you're not doing the right things with money. And if you're a parent and your kid asks you about money and you don't know, you don't have answers, you're like that. Then it's like anything else at work. If someone asks you something and you don't have the answer, generally speaking, that's a great question. I'm going to go find out and I'll get back to you on that. Right? That's the right response if someone asks you a question you don't know about. Great question. Let me find out. I'll get back to you. So as a parent, little Johnny or Susie asks you about money and you don't know what to say, you're like, maybe now is a good time I should learn. Maybe I'll learn with my child. It doesn't matter how old you are or how old your child is, because it'll benefit both of you rather than sweeping it on the rug, so to speak. Right? Vulnerable, feeling embarrassed. The entitlement thing I believe is a huge problem. Listen, we're all born and on this planet and we have to go out and get our own. I used to, I still do on some occasions. I listened to a guy named Jim Rohn. I don't know if you've heard of Jim Rohn, who's passed away a few years back, but used to have a lot of these types of talks in the 80s. And I taught this lesson to my child. I said, listen, when people want to go out there and they want to make an hourly wage, why? I don't know. It's the worst thing you could want to strive for is making an hourly wage. Trading time for money will never make you wealthy, period. Mathematically, it's impossible. So Jim Rohn taught a lesson. It's like, you guys want to make money. The more value that you can bring to the world or situation, the more you're going to get compensated. So go out there in the world and create value that people want/need. You will be paid/rewarded for it. So I taught this to my youngest child, and I told all my other kids, like, more value equals more money. I hear people say, CEOs of massive corporations making these multi-million-dollar annual bonuses, right? Well, if you're a CEO of a multinational company that does billions a year in business or whatever, well, I hired you as a CEO. You took my company and it made 20% more money, right? I mean, you made $200 million more dollars, and I gave you a 1% bonus on that, $2 million bucks. That's pretty fair. Would you agree? Because he had the knowledge and the value to bring to the table to help that company. You can do that at McDonald's. Hey, you could start at McDonald's, recognize that you bring so much value every day that you go from being the fry cook to the assistant manager, more value, I'm the manager, and you just keep making more money. And so I try to stress to people, like, just worry about bringing value. Don't worry about putting in time. Don't worry about, I have to have a degree to make this much money, because every degree out there that you might get in whatever field, it doesn't matter, all has a ceiling of how much money you can make.
Of course.
An entrepreneur, we have a business. The more clients we have, the more money we make. I think that's why entrepreneurship's on the rise. That, and when I say kids, anybody under 30 is a kid to me, but you're out there in the world and they all want their independence really bad, it seems to me. Right. And so the consequence, and today's generation has so many more opportunities. I mean, with technology and the internet, oh my gosh, there's 18-year-olds out there make 10 million bucks a year. It's crazy.
And that's another thing. A lot of the younger folks are glued onto entrepreneurship. Gen Zs in particular.
You look at Kylie Jenner, right? Here's a kid at early 20s becoming a billionaire. But she was a byproduct of the whole family.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Extreme example, but nevertheless, all of those years of being on the Kardashians and her mom actually set that all up for her, and just made her the name and the face of that huge corporation that she now runs. But the opportunities are endless. So I always say to people too, I don't make enough money. I can't get a better job. Like, guys, every single day on this planet, there are opportunities for you to go out there. The problem is recognizing the opportunity, and then opening the door to the opportunity. If there's an opportunity right in front of you and you don't, it's not going to just give itself to you. It's just in front of you. You have to take action, right? Like listening to your podcast, people are out there with these family businesses like, hey, it's free to listen to a podcast. Doesn't cost any money. It takes a little bit of my time. And I always say, if someone spent 30 minutes or an hour on your podcast and took away one golden nugget that made a dynamic shift in their life, that was a well-spent 1 hour.
Exactly.
I hope everybody listening today to you and me has some sort of at least one aha moment, one golden nugget, and now they're thinking. Then you and I did our job.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes,
We did our job.
A mind shift is
a mind shift.
Yeah.
And mind shifts can happen all of the time. There's nothing wrong with it. I think some people are stuck but your belief systems are so ingrained in us. Like once you believe whatever it is you believe, man, it's hard to get people to change. Because they're stubborn, right? They're stubborn. No. Mom told me this, Dad, somebody told me this. This is it. Well, no, things change. This is 2021. We don't do the same things today as we did in 1990 when there was next to no technology. Of course, we're different people today. Wow.
Indeed.
Wow. Awesome conversation. Boy, you really got me spinning today. Woo, man, got me going. I've got another podcast later today I'm doing on asset protection. My wheels are spinning like crazy. But hey, listen, thanks for coming out.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, let's not overload them because I know they got to be out there just like, what? There's too much. There's too much. I got to listen to this one again. But let's get what's one last piece of advice out there as generational business owners that you would like to give people?
I would say be patient. If you're building a legacy, it is something that will outlast you. And if it will outlast you, it's not going to be an overnight initiative. So be patient, continue to sow the seeds, continue to plow the soil, and you might not see the totality of the returns in your lifetime, but bet you your future generations will, and the world will also see it. So be patient.
Great advice. Boy, I think if we all had, I think we can always have more patience. But great advice. Well, thanks for coming out. I know I'm going to be on your podcast in a couple of weeks. I look forward to that. And guys, if you're on YouTube, do me a favor, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel. You let a podcast out, brand new one every Wednesday, 7 a.m. So Nikki's will be out in a couple of weeks. And don't forget, if you're on the podcast, subscribe to my podcast, listening. Same thing, they come out every Wednesday. So for you guys that are out there, have a great week, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Hey everybody, hope you enjoyed that episode. Really enjoyed making all these episodes for you. Remember, we're just having conversations with people's journey with money and the things they did right with it, the things that did wrong with it, and how did they really come about getting their mindset with money. So every episode's different. We all have a good takeaway from them. So do me a favor, hit the like button, smash the like button, and subscribe to my channel, because every episode that I do is going to be different, as all our journeys are different. So you guys take care, and we'll talk to you next week.